I recently returned from a journey, a nice little break in the Channel Islands, just off the west coast of France, and I came across this wonderful scene. This is Corbiere. It's a rocky outcrop here. In fact, the island is only 9 by 5 miles in size, but it sort of doubles in size when the tide goes out. There's a huge tidal fall, 40 feet I think at least, so the tide is in at more or less at this point, so all we have remaining is this the Corbiere Lighthouse and some old German fortifications. Of course, Jersey was occupied. The only part of the British Isles it was occupied by the Germans. So there's lots of fortifications on this coast. Amazing old bunkers which you can go and see and hear the history of it. But this is quite a striking view, I think. So I'm going to try and get these rocks and these shapes, horizon, and you can see, I don't know if the camera picks up, you can see the sparkling on the water there, and the lighthouse. And I've got this little trackway that comes into this building here. I suppose that's maybe where the lighthouse keeper was, I'm not sure. So that takes our eye in. Even got a few pedestrians taking a trip out there. So I'm going to have a go at this. Now I want to keep it light and airy, be fairly accurate with the basic shape, but of course I can have a little bit of artistic license from time to time. They won't be exactly as you see in that photograph there. I've got a bit of green here, and so I'm going to have to vary, get the right tonal values as well. So let's crack on with that. You can see I've sketched it out to get us going. So I'm going to go for the lights. Light to dark is the conventional wisdom with watercolour. You can break the rules occasionally, but I think I'm going to stay with that now. And I've got a number 14 flat, soft watercolour brush here. So I'm going to get a nice wash in and see what we can make of the sky. I think I'm going to use some ultramarine. I'm using a mixture of Winsor & Newton, Daleroni. So I've mixed them up. So I can't tell you exactly which is which right now. But I'm going to get a nice little puddle here. And remembering, of course, that watercolour is going to dry a lot lighter. So you put it on sometimes and you think, oh, is that too... I mean, my mixture now looks pretty strong, but I will try and stay with it. I just lost I'm using my iPad as my reference. So we've got a nice slab of blue here. Just leave the spaces where I've got to leave some whites. A lot of white in the sky there. So I'm going to have to try and preserve that. And the water do the work. Hopefully we'll get some happy accidents. So let's leave it there and not fiddle too much. But I'm going to use some sienna as well, just to give me a bit of shadow. Is that raw sienna there? Yes. See, I can get a little bit of shadow on some of the undersides of my cloud here. Right. I think I'll bring it down to the horizon. Leave a little bit of white. What I'll try and do is soften some of these edges with a sort of damp brush there. Don't want any hard edges, really. Let's leave it like that. And then we've got these sea areas. So I'm going to wipe that in. A little bit of dry brush as well. So I can leave some sparkles on the sea. And the sea comes in there, that little inlet there, and all around there. Say the sun was looking somewhat into the sun actually, so there's a lot of sparkle on the water. So if I lightly tickle this in, hopefully I can preserve some of that. I'm using a little more intense blue as it comes closer to us. You often find that your colours are a bit brighter as they come closer to you. Some rocks here protruding, so I'm going to try and keep those. Sketch them in. I'm leaving a little bit of white there. That could be our surf as it crashes up against the rocks. As I said, there's a lot of sparkle on the water, so I'm going to just try and get some with a bit of dry brush there. Let's leave it like that, I think. It does come in a little bit there. Right. more slightly darker bits on the elements of the sea, reflecting the shadow from the clouds as well, a little bit darker there. And out here on the horizon, that helped me define the horizon a little bit better. Right, let's leave that. And here I've got quite an expanse of foreground, and that's okay. We want some interest, but I don't want it to be boring. I've got to keep it interesting, so I'm just going to take a stab. Sometimes you have to be brave and spontaneous. You're not going to do a masterpiece every time you paint, so you've got to bear that in mind. Just be bold and brave. I often find when I'm more relaxed, I'm more satisfied with my painting. If I fuss too much, I don't do such a satisfying painting really. So I'm going to put a little bit of red with these things as well, so I can vary it. Lots of colours in the rocks here. And as I say, the big brush, being bold with it. Right, and then of course we've got to get these darker rocks in. So we'll do that. Right. I've got it, the board taped, of course. Paper taped to a board, and then we've got to get these darker ones in. So I've got some, I don't think I'll stay with this big brush. I've got some burnt sienna, umber. Let's just see what we can do really. Let's start with these foreground ones. Let those rocks out in that water area. Paper, make sure it dries a little bit. I don't necessarily want it to bleed into my sea. Oh, let's just do that little one there, see how that works. Yeah, not so bad. And yes. Yep, let's get some, trying to vary the colours all the time. I'm going to step up a little dark with a bit of Payne's grey here. Yes, I can do that. see what we get. And yes, different blacks here. If I get some greys in as well, better do that. Trying to make the rocks read. I could just see a little bit of my sketch still there. Guide me a little bit. Some of these are, well, this is a bunker, that's concrete. So try and get that a little greyish. Right, do that. There's a little pathway that comes along here. And let's get back to some browns from the rocks. A little bit of colour there. A little bit poking out there. Right. And we've got finer rocks here. Could do some splattering, of course. You just, if you've got enough paint, you can sometimes give a little bit of texture. You've got to get more colour in here. To try and preserve a little bit of light on that roadway as well. This could be a bit darker. Some of our, they're sort of pretty much looking into the light, so they tend to be darker, set against a bright sky. And I think this, I need to vary that a little bit. And these rocky outcrop here, still using this big brush. Got to put in the lighthouse. There's a bit of a house there, a little building, and this is all dark here. Yes, it's pretty much all dark, so let's get that in. And that all along here. how to connect with this. A little bit of rock there. Trying to keep the shapes very accurately. I'm painting this for somebody who actually lives on the island, so they will know this very, very well. So I think it's a good plan to make it something that they will recognize. Yes, let's bring this down here. Right, that's it, I think. Can do that. A little bit of dry brush help you get a little bit of the contour. This is rocky ridges, different levels. So if I just drag my brush along there, that will help. Along that margin, it's here, rocky outcrops, definitely. Let's make that a little. So I'm trying to vary the tones, keep it interesting. Now how dark do I make this? This is definitely against the sun, so I think I could step that up a little bit. Yes, I think I need to do that. Yes, I think we can do that. Yes, we need a bit stiffer paint, I think, in some areas now. Let's stiffen this up a bit, make it a bit darker. Yes, I think getting there. Let's make sure we got those rocks reading as they should. I think a little darker here, I think, against the sunlight. Yes. Let's vary the colours a little bit. Let's make a bit of a bluey colour. Give some change there. I think we'll put a little bit of red as well. I've got some various reds: cadmium red, crimson alizarin. Yes, that's a little bit of crimson alizarin here to make this read a bit there. To wash that in a bit, I think. So I've done this all with this one brush, but I need to block this out a bit, I think. Add a bit of warmth to it there, a little bit of colour there. It's a beautiful sunny day, one was taken here, so this will reflect a nice memory, hopefully, of the time. Right, I think I'm going to be very careful not to over paint. It's a terrible thing to do, but it happens, sadly. Say with all painting, I think sometimes less is more, especially with watercolour for some reason. It's a fine line. When should I stop? Darken up this bit here still, because I said it is against the bright sea, so that emphasises it really. You do that. Right, have I got the right tone values here? Break this edge up a little bit. Contrast a darker bit against that white often will help. Right, now, right, I think I could, well, I've tried to preserve some of the whites to give me that sparkle, but should I add a little bit of gouache to give it extra sparkle in places? I wonder. I think I took several photographs when I was out here, so I can use a variety of references to help me get it right. Well, I think I'm going to add a little bit of white to the sea to try and get some sparkle. And I know I've got some gouache here, designer's gouache, so I'm going to add a little bit of sparkle, which I can see. On the horizon. a little bit. Let's break up this bluey patch there. And perhaps a little bit on our rocks here. And also I could emphasize this doorway to this bunker there. A little bit of colour there to help define it as a structure there. And oh yes, there's a lot of sparkle down here. Let's see, let's put a bit of wave action. On some of these places. Yes, I can see along here a little bit of sparkle, a little bit of wave hitting here. Yes, I think so. And a little bit coming in here and there. And I've got to do something with our lighthouse, but I have to darken it up, of course, because it's in silhouette. But there's a building down there which is catching a bit of light. So I'm going to leave that there. More grey here. This concrete bunker. Rounded edge there. Right, that'll do. Now let's get, got to put a bit of colour into that, or a little bit of darkness, would I say. I need to get that lighthouse showing. Yes. You got to do that. That's it. Oh, I know we could put a little hint of blue, which I seem to have missed, in that inlet. There's water flowing in there. Got to have that. Right. And a little bit of dark there, and then I can show a bit of sparkle as well with some gouache, I think, in this. Let's just like that. Bit of dry brush really. Then let's get back to the gouache. And it's got a lot of sparkle here. A little bit of sparkle, yeah. Right. Now that pathway, have I got that showing? There's a little bit of gouache there to emphasize this little roadway that comes here and bends around like that. Use my smaller brush here to give it a little bit of form, I think, to some of our rocks here. Give some shape. Of course, we've got to have light and dark, otherwise things look flat. To define a form, you've got to have some shadow area, a dark side, and a lighter side as well. So yes, a really interesting place to visit this. So much history, sad history really. Pathway along here. This is the entrance to the bunker there. Right, have I done enough? I wonder if I could, with this little brush, maybe I could hint at the pedestrian. Let me think. A few lines here. No. No, I think I need to use a little pen and ink to do that. It's just too far. This is... Now, should I have it a little darker here? Give some form to these rocks. Darker side there. Darker bits here, look. Got the lighter bit. This is the shadow bit. Not getting much. I think I might bring the rock up there a bit. Well, there it is. I think I'm going to leave it now before I do too much. This is, as I said, Corbiere on the island of Jersey. Lighthouse here. If you're in Jersey, you've got to go visit this place. It's very, very interesting. And when the tide goes out, you'll see rocks right out for a couple of miles. It's pretty amazing. So if you like this, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Helps the channel grow and gives me some feedback. If you've got any comments as well, of course, I'd be interested to know that. Whether you paint or not, it's still interesting. Thanks for watching. Of course, I've forgotten to take off the tape. It's always very satisfying to take the tapes off of your painting and you get a much cleaner, sharper edge, which gives a little framing to it. So let's do that. And the last one. Oops. There we are. Looks a lot better when you've taken the tapes off, don't you think?